I need to put this on record before the company wipes my hard drive. If you live in an old house, do not buy a smart vacuum. Do not use your phone's LiDAR to measure your living room. Do not let anything map your floor plan. Because if you find the extra square footage, if you find the discrepancy between the map and reality, they will know you noticed. I work as a spatial archivist for a third-party data broker. You've never heard of my employer, but there is a very high probability they possess a millimeter-accurate 3D reconstruction of your bedroom on their servers. Whenever a real estate firm does a virtual tour, or a delivery drone scans a neighborhood, or an automated vacuum maps your carpets, that spatial data is aggregated. My job is the night shift. I sit in a windowless room, put on a headset, and manually clean the raw point cloud data. I delete digital artifacts, smooth out corrupted geometry, and ensure these simulated ghost towns are perfect for the database. It's isolating work. You spend 8 hours a night floating silently through the digital skeletons of empty homes. You become a voyeur to the geometry of other people's lives. 3 days ago, the automated queue assigned me a new file. It was flagged for manual review due to severe spatial anomalies. The file name was just a string of geographic coordinates and a date. I engaged the rendering engine and spawned in the front yard. It was a single-story suburban home. As I moved my digital camera forward, gliding through the front door, a heavy, sinking feeling materialized in the pit of my stomach. I knew this architecture. I knew the exact, slightly awkward angle of the narrow hallway. I knew the way the kitchen counter curved near the sink. It was my childhood home. The one my father sold 20 years ago after my mother passed away. At first, my brain reached for the most logical conclusion. It's a massive database. Statistically, my old house had to be in there. The current owners probably wanted to sell it and ordered a spatial scan. I glided through the digital living room, letting the point cloud load around me. The software had captured the topography perfectly. But as I looked closer, that fragile rationalization fell apart. The furniture in the scan, it wasn't modern. It wasn't the new owner's furniture. It was ours. There was the heavy oak bookshelf my dad built in the garage. There was the hideous floral sofa. The scan was so incredibly dense, I could see the digital indentation of the cushion where our old golden retriever used to sleep. My breath caught in my throat. My hand hovered over the keyboard as I pulled up the encrypted metadata for the file. Date created, October 14th, 2006. Time, 3:14 a.m. I stared at the glowing numbers until my eyes watered. In 2006, commercial interior 3D mapping was not a reality for the average consumer. LiDAR technology of this fidelity was the size of a refrigerator and restricted to industrial or military use. More importantly, on October 14th, 2006, I was 10 years old. My father and I were living in that house. We were asleep in our beds. Do you understand the implication? In order to create a point cloud scan of an interior, a physical object, a camera array, a laser emitter, something, has to physically move through the space. It has to bounce light off the walls. Something walked through my house while we were sleeping. Something meticulously mapped our home in the dead of night. With a trembling hand, I navigated the camera down the digital hallway toward my childhood bedroom. The door was open. I floated inside. The scanner had captured a distinct lump under the blankets on the small bed. It had captured the topographical shape of a 10-year-old boy. Me? I noticed something else. The perspective of the scan. The origin point of the data collection. It was hovering roughly 8.5 feet off the ground, scraping the popcorn ceiling. Whatever was standing in my bedroom, looking down at me in the dark in 2006, was incredibly tall. I tore the headset off. The server room suddenly felt suffocatingly hot. The humming of the cooling unit sounded like a swarm of insects. I wanted to hit delete. I wanted to purge the file, shut down my workstation, and walk out of the building forever. But human curiosity is a terminal disease. We always have to look. I put the headset back on and returned to the digital hallway. That's when I finally saw the anomaly. The reason the automated system had flagged the file for manual review in the first place. Between my father's bedroom and the bathroom, there was a stretch of blank wall. In reality, there was absolutely nothing there. Just cheap drywall and a faded painting of a lighthouse. But in the 3D model, there was a door. The point cloud data showed a perfect rectangular indent in the geometry. A door that was slightly ajar, leading into a space that physically, architecturally, could not exist within the footprint of the house. It violated the basic laws of physics. If you looked at our house from the outside, that space was just the empty air above the driveway. But from the inside, the scanner had recorded an entire room hidden behind the drywall. My index finger felt numb on the mouse. I slowly pushed the digital camera forward, squeezing through the impossible door frame. The data in here was heavily corrupted. The neat, organized grid of white points broke down into a chaotic storm of static. The rendering engine was struggling to visualize geometry that made no mathematical sense. The walls didn't meet at right angles. They seemed to curve infinitely downward, like the inside of a concrete throat. And in the dead center of the room, standing completely still, was a dense cluster of points. In spatial mapping, when a scanner captures a moving object, like a person walking through a room, it creates a ghost, a blurry, stretched-out smudge of data. This was not a ghost. This was a solid, high-density mass. Whatever was standing in that impossible room had remained absolutely, perfectly motionless while the scan was taking place. It was tall, 8.5 feet at least, matching the perspective from my bedroom. It didn't have a face, just a flat, featureless plane of static. Its arms hung impossibly low, the digital fingers brushing the floor. I stared at the monitor, paralyzed. My mind was desperately trying to reject the visual information. I told myself it was just a severe glitch, a corrupted data packet, a rendering artifact. But then, I analyzed the orientation of the figure's featureless head. It was facing the digital door. It was facing the hallway. It had been facing my bedroom door. I reached for the keyboard to hit escape, to force terminate the program. But before my fingers could make contact with the keys, the figure in the 3D model moved. Point cloud files are static. They are three-dimensional photographs. They do not contain animation data. They are mathematically incapable of movement. But the avatar's head slowly rotated, 90 degrees. The featureless plane of static turned to look directly into the digital camera, directly at me. A sound erupted through my headset. It wasn't digital static. It was the heavy, wet sound of a blocked airway struggling to breathe. The software froze. The mouse cursor vanished. A green progress bar appeared at the bottom of my screen. The text above it read, "Geometry override. Applying local sync." I ripped the headset off. The progress bar reached 100%. The screen flashed. New room added to current location. I quit my job that exact second. I didn't pack my bag. I just ran. I thought it was a cyber attack, a highly sophisticated, malicious virus designed to induce panic. But I'm sitting in my apartment now. It's a cramped, modern one-bedroom on the 4th floor. I know every square inch of it. 10 minutes ago, I turned off the lights to go to sleep, and then I heard it. A faint creak of floorboards from the hallway. I live alone, but in the hallway, right between the bathroom and the front door, where there has always been a solid stretch of drywall, there is now a hairline fracture in the paint. A perfectly straight vertical line, exactly the dimensions of a door frame. They use the maps to find the empty spaces. And when they find them, they build doors. I think the wall is opening. God, it's opening.